Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Sovereign Goddess Podcast. Authentic conversations with modern medicine women and goddesspreneurs alike, inspiring you to build your queendom with grace. So this is like another episode inside the Creosote Casita. And I've got my guest here. Krista Rierson of Chalice, fellow Kundalini Yoga teacher and soul sister. And she's been staying in my house for like 11 days now.
A long time.
Yeah, she's been in my house for like the past 11 days. We went to the Tuscon Gem Fair together.
Yeah.
And then we just been upgrading together during this eclipse. We like woke up at like 5:30 in the morning. No, 5. We woke up at 5.
Yeah, at 5.
To do sadhana. And
went outside.
We cleared all of our crystals that we bought from the gem show.
Yeah.
And did sadhana. We did yoga 3 times that day. Woof. We've done like 5 sound baths.
5 sound baths.
Over the past 11 days. So we're like supercharged for you guys. But I feel like this has been an episode that's been wanting to come out for a while.
Yeah.
Like we've been talking
Since we
about
met,
this.
probably.
Yeah, which is also a really funny story.
Yeah. We met on Instagram.
We did.
Yeah.
We met on Instagram, and it's pretty fascinating to see the journey up until now. And
I think we had a mutual friend. That's how we ended up.
Myra.
Yeah, coming together.
Kundalini gowns.
Yeah. So, I came here last year to do a workshop in Joshua Tree for the tribe family gathering, and Sabrina just saw my Instagram and reached out and was like, hey, you're in my hood. So I happen to be renting a really beautiful Airbnb out here called the Joshua Tree House. Stunning place. And I happen to have the whole place to myself. And it's massive. So I invited her to come stay. You know, just threw it out there, take it or leave it. And she was stoked. So she came out with a bunch of food and cooked for me. And we watched Matt Con. We didn't even know each other at all. Like, I think we'd been following each other maybe for a month.
If that.
Yeah. So it was like, and even now.
It was a risk.
It was a risk. It was a total risk. And maybe even a liability. It was unsure.
A liability.
Yeah.
Crazy bitches coming together.
Yeah. And even staying, I feel like, for this trip, not that it was, I mean, we know each other a bit more, but still, to stay with someone.
This is the second time we've met.
Yeah. Yeah. And to stay with someone for this length of time and to go to a huge gem and mineral show with that person and then stay in their home for multiple days without knowing them. You know, I kept saying, I'm so proud of us.
Losers.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's really cool. It's beautiful. You know, there's always polarity in life, right? So there's always a double-edged sword to things. And I think that we can get really caught up in how Instagram, with everything that's going on with it and the numbers, especially for businesses, how it can be not such a good thing. But it also can really bring people together.
That's what I've been telling my friend. My friend Blair Porter, she posted this thing how like she's been afraid to like share so much on Instagram because it's like we put a lot of ourselves out there. But I was like, dude, there's 2 sides of the coin. The mutable Gemini in me is like, hey, the mutable Gemini is like, hey, yeah, like, it's definitely hard because there can be this like egotism going through, but then it's also like super beautiful because like I met her through Instagram too, and like most of my friends today I've met through Instagram, and it's kind of the norm. And I was hearing today someone being like, oh well, that's maybe it was you, how like adults find it hard. It's like hard for adults to like
make new friends,
but I feel like my like core friends are the friends I've made through Instagram.
Yeah, and I think that touches on also a really beautiful point, because I think it's beautiful to have friends that you've had forever, but being someone who is extremely passionate about self-growth and development and on an evolutionary spiritual path, you're going to be changing your friendships, you know, because you're shifting your energy, and therefore the people that you hang out with are going to shift. And sometimes, if you're lucky, that gets to be the people you went to high school with or to college with, but that's not always the case. So I think it's really beautiful that it's really collapsing time and space technology, where we can, you know, talk to someone across the world just like that. It's beautiful.
For sure. And like different places, like she lives in Canada and she's here, even though like her soul is totally in this desert.
Yeah, my soul is in the desert. When I came here last year it shifted something in me in a way that was really profound. My whole house looks like, has
California.
Yeah. Yeah. It has such a splash of California. So I'm really honored, and I think that it has been such a fun trip for us because we're both Kundalini Yoga teachers. And so to do sadhana, to chant mantra, for the average maybe person, that can seem a little strange. And I always joke to people who are trying Kundalini Yoga for the first time, because I've probably taught over 100 people this particular style of yoga for the first time ever, and I always say it's weird.
It's so weird.
It's weird. Just prepare yourself that it's weird, and once you can just get that out of the way.
Yeah. It's something that, like, we try to grasp as to why not to do it, or, like, another kind of, like, segmented, like, separation.
Yeah.
Because so many people are so used to, like, vinyasa or hatha, and then they're seeing, like, Kundalini, where I'm doing my arms in, like, crazy positions. Yeah. And, like, you want me to do what with my mouth? You want me to, like, you want me to keep my arms up for 24 minutes, 23 minutes? Who are you?
And I think that that's an important, many people aren't familiar with Kundalini Yoga, and it's the yoga of awareness. And my favorite thing about this practice is that it's a yoga that's focused on the glandular system and on the nervous system, as opposed to being primarily focused on the muscular system and the skeletal system. And for someone whose background was, severe and debilitating anxiety for a chunk of my life, I needed something to ground my nervous system.
Oh, totally. I mean, I think for me, like, after my lightning accident, like, I didn't have any physical, like, bone or, like, any abnormality, like, with my body per se that you could see, but it was totally my glandular system and my nervous system more definitely, that really got screwed up from that lightning accident. And then I became a Kundalini Yoga teacher in 2015, so that was 3 years after
it happened.
No, 2014 I became a Kundalini Yoga teacher. Yes, that was 2 years after my accident.
It also feels really symbolic, because you think about the way the nervous system works. Everything's like they're electrical impulses that are being sent through the body, right? And then you get hit by lightning. And in one way, again, coming back to the polarity of life, good, bad, right, wrong, yes, no, masculine, feminine, we can look at being hit by lightning as this negative thing, and I'm sure for a time it felt that way. But then understanding and seeing that bigger picture where it's like, that was such a blessing in my life because it led you to all of these other things.
Oh, totally. I mean, I would not...
Yeah.
I would probably be dead right now. No, seriously. Like, I was eating so much ecstasy at that time, and, like, I was using my power to be like, with the man,
right.
Like, fighting against the man out of anger...
Right.
And not out of like, hey, like there's obviously love that was really guiding me, but so much of it was like, I was pissed off because I felt like society was telling me who I needed to be, what behaviors I needed to do. Like, they were trying to mold me to someone like that they wanted me to be, and I was just like, no, I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm fucking sovereign, But I was also very destructive because I was completely disconnected from my lower triangle.
Right.
So, as I talked about in previous episodes, like so many politicians and stuff, they're so stuck in the upper triangle.
Yeah.
And because there's been so much shame around the body and the lower triangle, and more and more people I've been talking to have been really sharing with me how they're really working on breaking the mold of like the Judeo-Christian molding or limitations or like all of that. I mean, I'm definitely still working through a lot of that.
Well, it's woven into the fabric of just about everything.
Yeah, totally.
It's really, really, it's in symbolism, it's in mythology, it's in folklore, it's in legend, and a lot of that is archetypal in nature, but a lot of it comes from, people in positions of power who are trying to control a generation. And when you're someone who's really sensitive, who is an empathic, who feels a lot, it makes sense that would be an energy that you wouldn't want you wouldn't want to have power over you.
Yeah. I don't want to be contained and limited. And
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's what was so much with the pre-lightning too, is like, I really like woke up after my Kundalini awakening, and I was like really like reconnected with my empathic self. And then I was feeling already that the world was kind of like crumbling. And then so that was my like overall like main intention and focus was like what I was doing felt like was really going to help humanity,
right?
Like heal and become stronger. But I still had to work by like beating the man or like, you know, having power over the man. And now I'm just really working on seeing that so much of the man and like societies and these big politicians and people in power just have really gnarly childhoods.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much like inner child healing. And even today I was telling Krista, I was like, dude, I got this like clear like aha that so much of my work is so centered on inner child healing because I had a very traumatic childhood with so much death.
Yeah, myself included.
Yeah, and prolonged depression. And that's why even now, like, it's gotten to the point through Instagram, for instance, going back to like how we met, and because I think it's such an important topic right now as a spiritual teacher, is like I've had to unfollow people that I felt like aren't showing like all the facets of the human experience because I believe like there's so much beauty in that darkness. It's like the Black Lilith, like there's so much
Black Lilith.
There's so much beauty in the darkness because I know for damn sure that is how I've grown. That has given me the opportunity to really like be who I am and be empathetic and be compassionate and to just really hold space for whoever.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I was raised, when I was younger, I was raised as a Baha'i, which is one of the newer world religions.
Right.
And so I wasn't actually raised in Christianity or Catholicism, but that's the point, is like it seeps into everything. And this isn't a conversation saying any of that's bad.
Right.
It's to say when we're only looking at one side of life or at life through one particular lens, it can be really damaging. So it's no different than when you're on Facebook or Instagram and you're only sharing one side of yourself. I see people who only share darkness, who are spiritual teachers, and what's happening is they're actually hooking into other people's darkness, and it's the blind leading the blind, right? So I think we can get
I've been there.
Yeah, and that's what we can have compassion for it. You know, it's really challenging to have compassion for people if you haven't had the experiential knowledge of it firsthand, unless you're someone who's enlightened or has done a lot of spiritual work. But spiritual work means no spiritual bypassing. No spiritual bypassing means you're not just focusing on the good. So you probably have gone through some of the murkiness of your own shadow. You know, trudge through the swamp of all your limiting beliefs and all your childhood trauma. And it also makes a lot of sense to me right now that you're feeling this energy of the child, because with that eclipse with Leo, there's so much of that embedded in that. Is
totally.
That inner child. And today I was just watching a video, and Louise Hay, rest in peace, not that she needs a rest in peace because she's probably dancing somewhere. She was one of the grandmothers who just like really sealed in the fact that we need to see people in their innocence, which means you imagine them as a child. And this was my very first initiation into my healing process, was to imagine my mother and my father as children. And I would see them as babies, and I'd be holding them in my arms, and then I'd put them actually into my heart. And in my particular life and path, my parents, more so my fathers, because I do have a stepdad and a real dad, they're not going to necessarily give me what it is that I need in the physical, or say the words, or even, you know, the apology or whatever it is. So I actually had to create that on my own. That was the first step of my healing. So I'm seeing them in their innocence before whatever happened to them happened allowed me to operate in a place of such forgiveness. And so the video I was watching today, he said the same thing. He said that his boyfriend had cheated on him, and he imagined him as a young child, and through that he forgave him like that. And that is a miracle. It's the shift in perception from fear to love, to see someone in their innocence. Because you can't be angry at someone when you realize we all come from the same stuff. We all come
and
from
so
the
many
same
of us
place.
are damaged.
So many of all of us.
Yeah, we're all damaged.
Oh my gosh, the human experience, I think incarnating alone is a little bit traumatic.
Totally.
You know? So being human is a brave, it's an act of bravery.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and then just even going back to the conversation about like showing the shadow and showing the light, because I feel like, especially as a spiritual teacher, we've been doing the work for a while.
Yeah.
So then it's kind of like we're holding precedent for like the people who are just beginning, you know?
Yeah.
And so the biggest thing for me is that I remember when I was really going through the rough patches, I was so ashamed because I felt like I needed to meet up to this view of like what a spiritual leader looks like,
right,
or like how I'm supposed to be, because these are how all my teachers are living, and like they're all like their lives are awesome and they're living the dream. And when you're in the fucking shit, you're just like feel so isolated and alone. And I've so been there, especially after the lightning accident. I was literally like took a 4-year sabbatical because I felt so separate from everyone, because I felt like no one was really sharing, because I was reading so much self-help and like watching, like I read like literally 100 books like the first year after my lightning accident, just to find answers and like figure out like what the hell is going on, like why did this happen. I feel like the answers are still unfolding, you know. I think the biggest thing is just like surrendering what I felt or what I feel like was supposed to happen, and just continue to allow and just be in that space of openness and open my heart and surrender. But
well, this is the month of allowance. And I think it's also really important to remember that many of the people that we look up to that are spiritual teachers and leaders came from the Piscean age.
Totally.
So it's very different. Even if, for example, my Instagram page, Chalice Grove started as jewelry. It started as conscious jewelry. I started making malas because I was having dreams about them. And that was how I stepped out of the traditional world. And I have always felt a very strong spiritual call or pull to something greater, to be someone on the planet who is a way shower, you know, a light worker. But through that journey, I think we can get really lost along the way when there aren't people showing us that there are two sides. And if you look at my account, it's not just jewelry. You know, it's not a business-oriented account, because I am my brand. And that's what's shifting a lot, I think, with millennials. That's what's shifting a lot with the new generation, is that there needs to be more authenticity there. People want to purchase from me because of my authenticity, I find, rather than it just being a brand. And now when I even look at people's Instagrams that is just a brand, and it feels that way, it actually feels quite cold. When I can't connect to who
there's
they
no
are.
heart. It's like a cold-hearted.
Yeah.
There's like people want to support other people who are showing heart and like are like hearing out and like being like, oh my gosh, like I can relate to that person, or like they understand me.
Right. And there's no wrong way to do it. That's the thing.
Sure.
That's the kicker. There's no wrong way. Even if you're in your shadow and all you're sharing is your darkness, that is appeasing to an audience. That is drawing people in. Now, if you stay there, that's when it becomes problematic.
Right.
Because then you're encouraging other people to depend on you to be the spiritual teacher. You're not empowering leaders.
It's almost like
teachers.
a martyr too.
Yeah,
you
totally.
know?
Yeah.
It's like the martyr of like, which
is a shadow archetype. Like the martyr is not an archetype that's in its power and its light necessarily. It's not that it's bad, again, because the darkness isn't
and
bad.
what's the opposite of the martyr?
Well, you're looking at the mystic. So the mystic is someone, you know, who is in their power, who has really landed in their knowing that they create their own reality, that they're sovereign, that they're the king and queen of their own existence. So yeah, martyrdom is, I mean, that's something that I've definitely had and hooked into for a lot of my life, and I know a lot of people do, you know?
I feel like that's so Piscean too.
Yeah.
And that's like so much of that like Judeo-Christian like upbringing too. It was always like, oh, sacrifice and a lot of that, and like you know, it's tough. It's definitely a journey to go through, and I feel like like millennials are like the main leaders of like this spiritual movement that are happening right now, that are the younger people. Like they don't have as many years to cut through as our parents.
Totally.
So that's why I feel like now we're kind of like holding our parents, like you said, holding our parents up like to that, because they've had to cut through even more layers than we've had to.
And a huge shout out to, you know, the people who have been anchoring in this energy, because there are many people who have been anchoring in an energy for 5D to happen. Mm-hmm. And again, this doesn't have to be esoteric. It doesn't have to be something that's beyond grasp, because actually what used to be esoteric is incredibly normal now.
Yeah, now there's no more of the woo-woo. Like the more people, I'm seeing more and more people talk about meditation now.
Yeah, well, Chapters, and I don't know if you guys have that in the States, but Chapters in Canada and Indigo Books, it's like a whole thing. They're selling meditation cushions now. They started out as a bookstore that then started, creating more products and having more products and selling home goods, and now they're selling meditation. This is mainstream.
No, for sure.
And it's not going anywhere.
It's just starting. So that's why I feel like it's even more important as spiritual teachers to make sure you're showing both sides, because I know for me, like I said, I was really ashamed of showing that shadow, because like it wasn't what was expected, or like what I was seeing so many teachers talk about, and then it just made me feel like shit that I was feeling like shit.
Yeah. Well, and I have to just out myself here, because to be honest, I've been sitting with a lot of the things that have been happening in my external reality lately, and realized that I have been spiritual bypassing without even realizing I was doing it. And that's so potent. And now that the awareness is there, I can shine light on it. But I had even attracted a partner where anger wasn't really okay in our relationship. And I'm someone who had a lot of anger. I've worked through tons of it, but my childhood left me with a lot of things that I felt really, really angry about. And so when I was in relationship, particularly with men, that would really come up. Anger would come up, and it would be that deep subconscious and even unconscious layering that when you get really close to someone, it starts to come out. It comes out as passive-aggressive behavior or snapping your voice.
Because it's their insecurity that you pick the trigger.
Totally.
And I wrote about that on Instagram today. Like, let's talk about triggers, because we were at lunch today, and this woman, she triggered the shit out of me. She triggered the shit out of me, but she was a Cancer, so she has like this external really like tough shell, but I know she's a softie on the inside. But she triggered me, and this was right after a sound bath, and I've been going through my own thing with this eclipse portal, and I was just like, shit, man, like.
You handled it well.
I think I did pretty well. Like, I just was quiet though most of the time, because there's definitely been insecurities in my life that I've had to really face and bring light to heal and transmute, and it's all coming up to the surface right now. Is between the eclipse being around all these gemstones, really stepping into my truth, and all these sound baths are just vibrating my cells to really
and bringing up the debris of what's in the unconscious
to heal and transmute
and subconscious. And what you're saying is so beautiful, because it actually aligns perfectly with what you're saying around the shadow. You being triggered by this woman allows you to see the areas within that are maybe not yet healed, like you said today. And now you get to look at your shadow again and love it all over again. And
shadow work, yes.
And it can seem never ending. And both of us, we are students of A Course in Miracles, and there's a lot about seeing the shadow, recognizing it, but not staying there and not going there, just giving it up to the grace of the universe or the grace of God, right? And while that is so beautiful, and I can tune into and feel the richness of that, I also think that there totally is a time and place where shadow work is absolutely necessary. You'll always brush into the same thing again and again, and you'll never move past that plateau.
It's another bypassing.
It's another bypassing.
And I've been I was even saying yesterday, I was like, dude, Debbie Ford. Debbie Ford was so strong with the shadow, rest her soul too. And that was when I was in my shadow, especially after the lightning accident, and I was hurting the people I love the most, because I was pushing them out of my life because I couldn't even deal with my own shit.
Yeah.
And I was I just need to figure this out right now. I can't have anything else more on my plate. And so I did so much of that deep shadow work for so many years, and it's not fun. For sure.
Oh, no.
But at the same time, I'm so grateful for it.
But it can be. I actually think it can start to be fun. I think that there's a new archetypal pattern emerging with the wounded healer, where we can start to utilize practices and tools and self-care that's actually fun. And then coming back to me talking about spiritual bypassing, what I realized in attracting a partner that didn't allow anger was that I actually, to some degree, once I started this path, because I've been on this path for probably 8.5 years, but I've only been a full-time entrepreneur and a spiritual teacher or leader for the last 3, where I've really stepped into that role. And there was definitely a part of me that didn't feel safe sharing those darker emotions, that I would be judged, criticized, condemned is a word that comes up. Interesting. You know, words are very powerful, and that's a Judeo-Christian word. And that you're sinful. And even today, the video, it's like sinning just means to miss the mark.
Yeah.
Right? And we're only missing the mark when we're not in love.
Yeah.
And when we're shaming ourselves for our shadow, we aren't loving ourselves. And if we're not loving ourselves, we're missing the mark.
And we're completely disconnecting from your natural essence, because everything is love or an opportunity for love, as the Course in Miracles shares. And so, yeah, it's been...
And we live on a polarity planet. The smallest microorganisms are polarized. We are polarized beings. It's what makes up our electromagnetic field, meaning there's always 2 sides to the coin. And like we had done a class together, a Kundalini Yoga class, where it's like, understand what the coin is. You see both sides, sure, but if you know what the coin is, that's your true identity. That's your true self. That's your Sat Nam.
It's the neutral mind,
it's the neutral meditative mind. Yeah,
for sure. And that's what we're working on. I even feel like as we go more to this 5D, if you don't understand like 5D, it's like that space of unity consciousness.
Yes. And co-creation. It's a lot about us coming together, because 3D, you know, there's a lot of us working on our own empowerment, and then through, it's a very masculine dominated chakra, right? So if you think about it, that makes total sense to the patriarchy, because we've been in 3D for so long. 4D, some people are moving into 4D. 4D is more about being aligned with the heart and aligning your purpose with the heart. This is why there are so many spiritual entrepreneurs, eclectic entrepreneurs, just in general, people showing up and creating their own futures that more often than not are aligned with heart space. And then when we can align with that heart space, we move into this co-creative space where we understand that we are not the creators, like The Secret maybe had many people believe. It's not a bad movie, but it puts so much emphasis on us being the one that creates everything, when the truth is, life, according to the yogic tradition, is full of 70% of it is mystery. Mystery, the unknown. And if we don't have access to the upper triangle, if we don't have a balance with the heart center so that it can create the bridge.
It's an hourglass. That's like my favorite visualization, is like the hourglass, and you have to keep tipping it upside down. You're seeing the sand come down. But finish that, sorry. Just wanted to give that visualization.
Yeah, if we're not in a place that can draw that energy up, then we're going to be stuck in this 3D reality, and we need to be able to pull that energy up to move into co-creative power, to understand that life, there's so much mystery to it, and when we can pull that energy up, we have access to that mystery. And life is really hard when...
I know you wanted to say fucking hard.
It's really fucking hard when we don't have access to the mystery, because then life is heavy in the 3D if we're only in that space.
Woo,
so when we move
girl!
This is really important work to be able to understand the upper and lower triangle. I'm so passionate about that and mental illness, because they very much mirror off of each other. Because some people with mental illness, I'm using air quotations, they get stuck in the upper triangle and they can't bring anything down. And other people with mental illness, myself being in that category with anxiety, you get really caught where you don't feel safe in the lower triangle. And so I was self-medicating all the time to try to get out of my own body, because I felt so scared to be here and didn't even realize it. And there's so many reasons why that happened. You know, being empathetic was one of those reasons, taking on other people's energy, having really leaky boundaries, again, having guilt for my darker emotions and not knowing how to process that. It created a lot of stagnation in my system. And then having trauma. Trauma is like one of the number one things that creates anxiety. And you know, they say 1 in 3 people have a mental illness, but that's only people who come forward and talk about that.
Totally.
All of us have the capacity to have mental illness. People who are expressing a mental illness gene have just tuned into the extreme of what all of us have the capability and the capacity to experience. But if we're operating from the reptilian brain, it's going to go too up, too high, or too low necessarily. And we can't operate from the prefrontal cortex, which allows us to know that we're safe, that we're part of something bigger than us. This is what 5D is about, bringing it all the way. Women are so great. We talk in such big circles. I love it. And then we just like reel it back in. And that is the beauty of the feminine. That's the beauty of the divine feminine, is she's in constant flow, right? And so to pull into 5D, we really are pulling in this consciousness of co-creative power, meaning there is an energy. You don't have to believe in God. You don't have to be part of a religious structure. None of that matters. I don't really even care about that stuff. What matters to me is what you believe in cause you to open, or does it cause you to close? Does it cause expansion, or does it cause contraction? And it's so important to understand that there is an energy outside of us and within us that creates solar systems. It creates cosmos.
Oh, don't get me started. I'm still so excited about SpaceX.
Yes, this is all part of it. This would not be happening if we weren't moving into 5D. And many of us are already there. And this is, again, that shout out to the older generation who were operating out of 4 and 5D. My stepmom is one of these people who maybe wasn't outwardly being a spiritual teacher or a revolutionary out there in the world, but she was in her own family and she was in her own community. And these people anchored in this energy so that us younger folk could come in and then tune into new archetypal patterns. And if you don't know what archetypes are, they're just patterns of power. And these patterns of power are everywhere, and we're tuning into them moment to moment. They're innumerable, and they're always changing based on our own levels of consciousness. And Carl Jung, who is a Swiss psychologist, he was the one who really started to look at this energy. He called it the collective unconscious.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and this is where also the darkness lives, right?
Yes.
So archetypal, if you think about the way that archetypes work, it is an energy where we're looking into the shadow, but we're also looking into its counterpart. It's no different than astrology, where you're looking at one side of the coin, one sign, and then what is the sign that's opposing that? That lets you see the totality of what that sign is. You have to have the other one. Well, you can't have one without the other.
Yep.
In its essence.
That's why I'm in my nodal return.
It always sounds so funny. My nodal return.
My nodal return has my north nodes in Leo, my south nodes in Aquarius. So it's been like super intense for me with this eclipse. It's a lot of like.
I'm sure a lot of people are feeling it. I mean, I even contemplated, we've been talking about with spiritual teachers and the idea around perfectionism, and this is why you don't dive into your shadow self, because you think you have to be perfect. But even
it's exhausting.
A, it's exhausting. B, it definitely creates an energy where we can't show up in our totality, so we're only firing on half cylinders. And if you're only firing on half cylinders, you really aren't living a full life. You're living a half life.
And then you're exhausted and you burn out because you feel like you need to meet up to this expectation in order to find approval outside of you, to be loved, to be liked, to be appreciated, because sometimes you don't have that within you.
This is why I love Kundalini Yoga, again, because you can utilize the chakras. They're nerve clusters now. Science has proven that they're there. There are nerve clusters on these. We have 72,000 meridian points in the body, right, or nadis if you're looking into yogic terminology. But through the third chakra, the solar plexus, it's the biohacker system to get into the rest of them. So today our yoga teacher was talking about how the heart is, we all need to heal that. There's no question. But if you really want to get into the heart and to heal the heart space, you have to have a strong navel. So working where these, because that's where the 72,000 channels, that's the hub of them. They all come to meet at that space. So if you can create a strong navel point, this is why we chant in Kundalini Yoga. Many people might think that that's weird, but we're really calling upon that navel energy.
With these sacred sound currents.
With sacred sound current.
Yeah.
Working the meridian points at the roof of the mouth, which is a combination and permutation, which shifts the way that our brain actually, our brain fires, and that the glandular system secretes. So after
that's why my favorite thing is like say the word hate, and you realize that your tongue doesn't hit any of the meridian points. And when you say love, it gives it a massage.
Yeah, beautiful. I've never heard that one.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. And I bet you could try that with many words. Because if you think about in utero, the first thing that is created is the human heart.
Right.
The second thing is the tongue. So the tongue is connected to the heart. So when we speak ill of other people, when we speak ill of ourselves, we are literally poisoning our hearts. And so when someone has a lot of toxic language, you know they have a lot of toxic thought, but they're poisoning themselves. They're creating a toxic environment.
And they just need to do a shit ton of like lion's breath.
Yeah, for sure.
We did a lion's breath meditation for the eclipse, and I was like,
oh, I got so high. You guys, you can get so high off your own supply. There's a reason that Russell Brand says Kundalini Yoga is the crack cocaine of yoga.
For sure.
Yeah, because you know, once a seeker, always a seeker. We both have histories of heavy drug use and abuse and addiction. And I was always seeking something, and I just wanted to feel good. Even if feeling good meant I left my body, I didn't care.
Yeah.
I still wanted to have an experience of something bigger than myself.
My intention to always, when I was really abusing MDMA, my intention was always like, oh my God, this is how I'm going to be able to connect with God. That was like so much of because like I used to go to raves and I wouldn't talk to a single person, especially if there was like my favorite person performing. I would just sit and I'd be like, okay, like this is my time to commune with God.
Yeah.
So that was always my intention with it. It just started getting bad when I was doing it every weekend and I wasn't allowing the serotonin in my brain to regenerate.
Right.
And I did that for like 2 years.
This is why Shavasana is the most important posture.
Yeah, the resting pose. Yeah. Just like a lot of people don't want to do it, but like we need that.
You have to integrate. You can't integrate without rest. Again, you know why? Because the asana is often the masculine. It's the action. But the rest and renewal,
so the feminine. So I want to talk about this because as an entrepreneur, you know, sometimes we feel like we have to just get to the grind and like always work. But there's also true power in that rest and true power in play.
Yeah.
And true power in like turning the computer off sometime or like, for me, I don't have notifications on my phone for emails or social media.
Me neither.
So that I don't feel like I always have to be on. My notifications are from Archangel Michael.
Yes, I can attest to that. That's true. Yeah, I'm really passionate about this. I have a workshop called Sacred Feminine, and I was someone that was very dominated by masculine energy. I'm a Leo. That's my sun sign, ruled by the sun, solar energy, masculine energy. And it was go, 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 push, 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 strive, strive, strive. I'm in the spotlight because I'm putting myself there.
Girl, I get it. My rising's in Leo. I understand.
You get it. You understand. And that's exhausting too. And what I've really come to realize as I've really softened into myself is that women, because we have 2 arc lines in Kundalini Yoga, we have 10 bodies, and one of those bodies is the arc line. And because we have
the second arc line is from nipple to nipple.
Nipple to nipple.
If you are curious.
Yeah,
that's why they're always like the eye
they draw attention
is always going towards the breast.
Yeah, so the nipple to nipple has an arc line, and then ear to ear along the hairline. This is why with mystical figures you always see a halo above their head. That's representing their arc line, and it's strong. It creates a pull. It creates energy. I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about the arc line.
So when you want to get into a very like deep feminine space, you need to be able to cultivate rest and relaxation so that you can shift your electromagnetic field, so that you can integrate everything that's happened in the doing world and move into non-doing. And it helps to clear out the space so that you magnetize to you opportunity. There is a strength, a deep and profound strength in passivity, in being passive, and that's not, I'm not talking about passive aggressive. I'm talking about receptivity, allowance. This is the chalice, right? This is the sacred cup that this is an inverted triangle, right? It allows whatever is going on to flow into it very beautifully. And this is why we need this space. And so I'm really passionate about teaching men and women, because we each have a masculine and feminine essence of self, that all this striving, I actually don't think it's going to keep going like this as we continue to move into these new dimensions. It's going to be where people come to understand more and more that we need this time. And this is why self-care is a hashtag now. This is why people are talking about it, and this is why yoga is so big, because when we can come home to ourselves as our own infinity, and we can release the illusion, the shrouding of the residue of our past that actually keeps us cloaked so people can't see the real us, including ourselves, right? That's in the arc line too. People can even sense that in the auric field, where it's like, if you have a lot of stuff going on, people sense that. And it's because you've lost touch with who you are. I look at photos of myself even 3 years ago, and it's such a different energy.
Oh, for sure. Well, and then I want to talk about the auras and just your auric body, is because like you can get holes in your auric body too, you know, and then when you have these holes and you don't have a strong aura, a lot of the density from the world outside of you can come in, and that can be part of the boundary or the energetic boundary that can really suck out your life force, cause parasites, like
sickness. All illness comes in through the aura. I'm really glad you said that, because I really want to touch on, again, on the same topic we're discussing, is about the aura. And then when you say something like this from a yogic perspective, then we think, oh, if I get sick, then my aura's weak. Or, you know, we can get into that Judeo fundamentalist mentality. And even right now I'm quite sick, and so coming back to perfectionism, there was part of me that's like, well, should I record this podcast when I feel sick? When really what's going on is I'm being upgraded. So that's the part I want to address. It's like, yes, we can have holes in our aura. It can be leaky. We cannot have healthy boundaries, and sickness can get in. But just because you get sick does not mean that you're not healthy. It's nothing to be ashamed of as a spiritual
teacher.
You're
detoxing. You can be a form of detox or upgrading, Now,
if you're getting chronically sick, that's a totally different story.
Totally.
But I think it's important to remember that all of these teachings, be it yogic philosophy or religious or spiritual, always to let that filter through your own belief system and see what's true for you, and see how there's always that polarity, and then steep in the truth of your own knowledge, because we are infinitely wise. And we
just have to tap into that.
We just have to
remember what we know.
It's a remembering process. That's just it. We're already whole. We're already complete. It doesn't matter what you did or said.
It's the limitations that have been placed on us through childhood and throughout life up until now that we believe to be true because we were disconnected with our hearts. And so now we have to like unlearn to relearn.
Yes. Yeah. The empty cup.
Yeah.
That's why I love tea ceremony, because in a Taiwanese tea ceremony, you're constantly filling and witnessing empty cups. So every time you hand the cup over, it's empty, and then it gets filled back up, and then you take that plant medicine and you drink it, and you can't take more without it first being empty. The cup can't receive anything without it first being empty, and it's that beginner's mind in Buddhism, right? So always showing up, knowing that in this moment, how does that feel for me? What is my intuition saying? And coming back to spiritual teachers who are only showing their light, and then they're telling people how to be in the world. Well, that's just more dogma glittered up as something else.
Totally.
And when there's right and wrong, this is the right way to do it, and this is the wrong way, I'm not interested. I'm not interested.
Me either, girl. Shit. Me either.
And that's what being sovereign is about. And sovereign is all the second chakra, right? So this is all about creativity. So when you don't feel sovereign, you cannot create your own life. You will work for the man. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if most of us now are waking up to understanding that there's more to life than just that, we're put on this planet to remember who we are and to have fun along the way, and also to not just let joy be the one thing that causes freedom. Pain causes freedom. Suffering causes freedom. There's liberation that's found in the whole spectrum of emotions, or else we wouldn't be given them. Why are they here? Simply so we can pray them away? Wish that they're no longer here? Just give them up?
There's a lot of gifts in those experiences, and there's a lot of growth in those experiences and opportunities, because the way that I see it is like what I've gone through up until now has been my greatest teacher.
Definitely.
You know, and
I can attest.
And then I'm able to share because I'm not afraid of being authentic about the situation.
Right.
Like I'm willing to be vulnerable and share like, hey, I see you. I see what you're going through. You're going to get through it, but just know you're not alone. 1, and 2, there's a purpose and there's a reasoning behind everything. Like that is part of the perfection.
Yeah.
The being perfectly imperfect is part of the true perfection.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
It's not so much of the perfection of like, oh my God, I'm like wearing like the best yoga clothes right now and I'm looking so great with my green juice and like everything's all love and light all the time. Like, you know.
And look at all these companies that sponsor me and my Instagram feed is just perfect. And again, nothing wrong with that. However,
but there's more to life. There's that's shallow. It's a shallow life. Like, if you want true depth in your life, you have to allow yourself to fucking go there.
Yeah.
You have to allow yourself to, like, go.
Ooh, I feel that in your sound current.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about it. Fuck. No, but, you have to allow yourself to go into that dirt.
Yeah.
Because, it's like deep roots, you know?
Well, and
like,
the 10,000 petaled lotus only grows in the mud.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
no mud, no lotus.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you can't even open the 10th gate until, think about that. The lotus only grows in the mud. The 10,000 petal lotus is also represented as the 10th gate, the crown chakra. And then you think about the earth it has to grow in. So that's the root. So we're talking about then the upper triangle and the lower triangle. If you do not have the depth of that lower triangle to go deep into the mother, deep into the earth, and have that nurturing energy and to face your demons and to face the darkness, then you can't elevate yourself. And so to just love and light someone when they're in deep depression, it's not going to work.
No. Because all I know from my experience when I was in deep depression, I just wanted to be seen.
Yeah. And love.
And love.
Just a call for love.
Yeah.
Too.
And I just wanted to like have someone hear me out. And I just wanted to know that I wasn't fucking crazy for what I was feeling or what I was experiencing. Because it was like, again, like, well, I'm seeing through this lens of social media where everyone only shows the highlight reel of their life.
Right.
Like, wow, my life sucks. I'm miserable. That's what was going through my head for sure during those times. And it was just so isolated. I was so isolated. So, like, thank God for my dog and, like, thank God for, like, the books that I read and, like, my devotion. Even when I did my ayahuasca ceremony, the biggest thing that like was like in neon lights for me was like devotion. Like that's what it felt like, was just like being in devotion to God, being devotion to spirit, being devotion to my soul and myself and community, to praise spirit and to like be so grateful. And that's something that I've had to work through too, you know, like you're talking about with like spiritual teachers and like this is wrong and this is right. It's been a huge fucking risk for me to talk about psychedelics and my journey. Yeah. But I would be lying to myself if I didn't talk about that. Because yes, Kundalini has been a huge part of my healing, don't get me wrong. But if I were to discredit my psychedelic experiences and journey, I would be shaming myself. 1, I'd be lying to myself. And I would be preventing other people with an opportunity to be like, hey, if, you know, like, there's more research coming out. Like there's funding coming out right now for these researches. And so, yeah, there is definitely a period I abused drugs and medicines for sure. Yeah. I'm the first person to say that. But the fact that to say that it was all bad for me is not the true at all. It's just wasn't being moderate with it.
And I think the caveat to that too is a strong nervous system. If you don't have a strong nervous system, that's when things get really ugly in that realm.
Totally. And that's what happened with me. My nervous system was completely shot even before the lightning accident because I had such strong depression and didn't take care of my body.
I really want to say this because I find it's really, really powerful. Jim Carrey touches on this. Depression, he says, is the need for deep rest.
Yeah, deep rest. Yeah.
And deep rest from the characters that you're playing.
Totally.
And we all play so many characters, all of us.
Well, it's a facade that we put up.
So
it's
many
like
masks.
Yeah. And it's masking our insecurity. It's masking our doubt. It's masking our fear. It's masking our unworthiness. The list goes on and on and on.
And I find whatever people are projecting when it's really a big projection is often the thing that they're keeping close to themselves, and it's the opposite. So if they're projecting tons of confidence, but sometimes we can feel that that's kind of off, or they're
arrogant almost.
Yeah, it's because they're holding the jewel within of their insecurity, and they're so afraid to show that to someone for fear of being rejected, abandoned, betrayed. You know?
Yeah, totally.
So this work that we're doing, it's not necessarily pretty all the time, but it's the long-term game. And I say game because, on some level, this is an illusion. It's not to say it's not real. Like, you're very
remember
real.
the quote I told you this morning? All that is seen and seem is just a dream within a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And illusion only exists in the lower triangle. So everything, that's the tribal mind, right? Carolyn Mace talks about this. So the tribal mind, the world of illusion is in those lower 3 chakras. Even A Course in Miracles says we're dreaming. Anything that's not love is hallucination.
Right.
It's a hallucination. And for me, that's something so powerful, because when situations arise in your life, right now I'm going through a situation where there's a lot of turmoil outside of myself, and my ex-partner, has decided to date someone that I know, and it's a lot. But when I really tune into the truth of the energy of the situation, the only thing that's real in that is love. And anything that I take and say it wasn't is a hallucination, because we are that. It is us. That's why anytime you show up in love, you heal. You feel better. Now, the caveat to that is sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to put up boundaries and to be angry and to say fuck and to do whatever you need to do to move through that realm of illusion and shake it up so that you can you can get to the higher centers. It's not a hierarchy, but the higher centers allow us again to access the 70%. And because that 70% is unknown, we want access to this mystical idea that we don't know everything, to get comfortable being uncomfortable, to get comfortable with the fact that we don't know, to fall in love with not knowing. That is such a gift. It is.
That's trust.
Total.
It's trust. It's
surrender.
faith, surrender, inner knowing, soul
and the only way
knowing.
to know that is to jump, is to leap, is to do it. You can't write a book on trust but have never taken the steps. I remember when I was in my job, I was so bound by fear that I wasn't going to make money outside of that. I was terrified. And I remember having a conversation on the phone with my cousin, and she's like, why are you so afraid? And it was because fundamentally I had a fear that I wasn't supported by the universe. And I had to get to the root of that. And then when I saw that for what it was, I left my job and I was scared. I spent all my money on my business. People don't even talk about the gritty side of business. Like, I invested thousands and thousands of dollars into my business, and almost had to go back and get a job at one point. But then, miraculously, a huge amount of abundance came in for me that allowed me to keep going. And that's all you need. When those things start happening, the level of trust that builds, we were just talking about this being at the Gem and Mineral show, and right now I have a huge sum of money that I've just invested again into my business, but I have such a level of trust that's all going to come back to me tenfold. Yeah. So you have to just go through it to know that it's going to be, to know that it's real.
It makes grit. It makes it really enriching. It gives you an opportunity to honor all facets of the human experience.
Yeah.
You can't just be like one-sided.
We all know that just having abundance doesn't mean you have happiness. Just having money doesn't mean you have happiness. We also know that many people who don't have any money and who are just living in the upper realm, that doesn't bring you happiness either.
I just had this like gnarly visualization.
Tell me.
Like driving to Tucson from Joshua Tree, it was like you just go straight.
Yeah. Okay.
Imagine like how fucking boring it would be just to be like showing one side is just going straight, but like what makes the journey exciting are all of these twists and turns.
Totally.
Like that's what makes it
and
scenic.
The stops along the way.
It's scenic. It's what makes it scenic.
I've heard from other spiritual teachers and leaders that the angels are jealous of this realm because we actually come here, we incarnate to experience contrast. So that's the twist and turns of life. When we were, in the likeness, and not even in the likeness and image, but when we were source energy, it was just perfect. Perfect love, perfect expansion, infinity. And we wanted to experience contrast so we could make the choice to choose love. And it seems like it's insane, but it actually is incredibly intelligent in nature if you think about it. We chose to incarnate to remember that we are love and to face it's the hero's journey.
Yep.
The heroine's journey.
Yep. The woman who ran with wolves journey. For sure.
It's remarkable that we're here doing this work, and it can get really heavy.
And all mythology comes from that.
All mythology comes from that. This is why I love working with archetypes, because when you think about the way that's what mythology really is, this is what motifs in art is. It's this idea that we're tuning into this pattern, and that these patterns are agreed upon before we come here. And all of us who are actually on this planet right now are shifting archetypes. I'll give you an example. The wounded child. So we all have the archetype of the child. We all have 4 in common, and one of them is the child. There's many different types of child. So one of them is the wounded child. That's one of my archetypes. But my stepbrother, or my half-brother rather, he didn't incarnate with that archetype. Why? Because all of us, I believe, have chosen to do the work to help heal so much of our lineage, whether we know we're doing that or not. That is what we're doing. So the energy, it's like you're sending from a database to the main server. Imagine just hitting send. It's like sending an email, and you're sending that energy every time you think a thought. So when you think a thought, my inner child feels very loved right now. I feel very seen and very heard by you. I feel supported and loved and cherished. So I send a signal through my thoughts up to the ethers, and that collects energy. So if we're sending, I don't feel heard, I don't feel loved, I feel abandoned, betrayed, it creates a very strong vortex.
Dense.
And then when we incarnate, that's one of the things we get to kind of pick from, so to speak. Carolyn Mace talks about this in her book, Sacred Contracts. So when we come down, and there's more people doing this work, there's less energy now built into the wound, and more energy built into the magical child, for example, or the spiritual child. And so we can tune into this new energy. So the work we do today, the thoughts we think right now, has a profound effect on the entire world and everyone who's going to incarnate after us.
And if those thoughts get heavy, to not be hard on yourself.
Yes.
That's super important, because if those thoughts are heavy, allow yourself to stop, breathe, recognize that they're coming up, and realize that they're coming up to be healed and transmuted and to be showered with your love.
Yeah, and sometimes they're not even yours.
They're not even yours. That's part of that.
It's part of the universal mind.
The universal mind, and even if there's holes in your aura.
Yes.
That's coming through.
Yeah, and so when our vibration gets really dense and heavy because of many different things that we can choose to do. It could be the food that we're eating, what we're ingesting, the company we keep. Then we become a vibrational match to those lower thoughts. It's not even that they're necessarily ours. It's just that they're floating around in the universe. We attach to them, and then we decide if it means something to us based on our story. And then we adopt it as our own, and then it turns into emotion. When it turns into emotion, it starts to develop commotion. And that's when the limbic system kicks in, the reptilian brain, and we teeter over in one direction or another. But if we lift our vibration, so I love what you said, so if you just take one deep breath, this is not esoteric, it's super pragmatic. You take one deep breath, and you can shift your frequency. And then you're going to become a little bit more of a vibrational match to a different thought. Again, that's not to say have negative feelings. When I have negative thoughts fly through on the screen, I'm just like, whoa. And I put my hand on my heart always. I'm just like, I love you so much. And I talk to myself like that now. And I just spend time, because we think so many, like 1,000 thoughts in a second.
Totally, with every blink of an eye.
Yeah. So we don't even know what all of those are. That's why I love mantra. This is why I love sound current, because mantra, the only thing that keeps your misery sustained is toxic internal dialogue. So when we can use mantra, we actually cut the dialogue down at the root, and we plant a new seed. And when we plant that seed, we actually then allow something new to grow. When we plant that seed and we're lifting our gaze or drawing the pranic energy up, the life force energy up, Then we're infusing it in the higher chakras, and we're infusing it into the higher glands. And then when more often than not, the more it just is practice. That's why it's called a yoga practice. The more you do that, the less likely you will be to think these thoughts. And then when they do come up, again, just taking that moment and being like, oh, I love you. And noticing where it came from. Maybe it's yours. Ask if it's yours. Is it mine? Ask your body to give you a yes or a no. You know? There's lots of different tools to be able to find out what's going on for you. And if it's not your thought, let it go. And I mean, I know easier said than done, for sure. But once you have these tools, it can change everything. And the reason I'm saying that, and I'm so passionate, because this is coming from someone who for 6 months had a panic attack every single day. Every day. I felt so unsafe. I started getting vertigo. I didn't even know how to exist in the world. And I'm an outgoing person that loves people. And I didn't even know how I was going to be able to handle my life. And I thought I was going to be hospitalized.
I get it. I get it.
All I had was negative thoughts. And
I get it. I get it.
So much self-loathing, self-hatred, toxicity. And I did so much work.
Yep.
It doesn't mean the thought. Here's the thing. It doesn't mean we're trying to eliminate the thoughts even. That's not the point of this path. The point is when they arise, you have tools to help you transmute the thoughts into something serving for you. Because the thoughts are serving too. They're allowing you to know where you're currently at. Sickness, super serving. If you get sick, an illness is always going to guide you deeper into what it is that your emotional state is.
And it's what makes you really slow down.
Yeah. And we always have a positive intention. So even if someone gets really sick, the positive intention might be, I want to feel love. And they might not even be conscious they're thinking that, but that is the intention. It's so deep. And then day after day, they feel unloved, unseen, unheard. And so an illness might manifest where then they get love from people outside of them, family members, friends, because now they're sick. And Carolyn Mays talks about this. You should not have to have a broken heart for people to shower you with love.
Yeah.
And this is a sickness in our culture, to be stuck in this area, to be stuck in...
Poor me.
Yeah, so yes, dive into your shadow, but do not get stuck there.
Yep. With that being said, fuck yeah, this episode's so rad. Okay. So, I want to ask you a few quick questions.
Oh.
What would you say is one of your biggest spirit guides or spirit animals right now?
Spirit animals? Bear just came to mind.
Why?
You know, when I was younger, I dreamt about bears a lot, and I don't feel like that's my spirit animal per se, but it came flying through. So I felt like I needed to honor what that was. So the bear is a lot about hibernation and taking time to really integrate. And I feel that that's where I'm at right now is I'm integrating a lot of stuff. I'm going through an upgrade. I have a lot to offer. A lot is coming. This is just the beginning for both of us. We know that deeply in our bones, but it takes integration. So time for me to just settle and to go deeper into my self-care and self-love and to actually do all the things we're talking about, because
practicing what we're preaching.
Yeah, man, I don't want to see people who are like, I can help you be the next 6-figure blah blah blah, but I have $5 in my bank account. Like, run from people who pretend to have something and then try to sell it to you. That is not what this is about. This is about being honest, authentic, and then doing your work, sharing that you're doing your work, and then helping to elevate through sharing from a somewhat transmuted state.
Yeah. Okay.
So bear. Yeah.
Who would you say are some of your favorite goddesses right now that are really guiding?
Wow.
Black Lilith.
Black Lilith, obviously. I've been talking a lot about Black Lilith because, in Jewish folklore, Black Lilith actually came down as Adam's wife and then had to be subservient to him. And they actually say, the myth goes that he wouldn't let her go on top in the bedroom. And so she had enough of that and left. And then they created Eve from the rib so that she would be subservient. So I love, she's a rebel. She doesn't take orders. She's a sovereign being. She works with dark energy because she went and worked with demons. She birthed many of them. The angels had to go kill them all, as the story goes. So definitely Black Lilith. I'm also really working with a lot of energy around Kali right now, and being strong in that, because I am someone who, my Virgo rising really gets me. I can get very martyrdom. I usually take the archetypal path of the Virgin, so that's not literal, but that's to say when I go through healing, I go at it alone, and I find, you know, my strength in almost in being pious or in being pure. And now Black Lilith and even Kali, it's like, you have boundaries. You're destroying in order to create. You know that is okay for your well-being. You're not just being the nice girl. And I think that that's something that's really deep in our culture that we all have. Well,
that's part of the huge healing that's happening right now.
Yeah,
it's like
being
the good
nice
girl
means I'll get love and approval.
Yeah.
Well, we're fucking tired of it.
Yeah, tell them. Shit, tell them.
So those are two that are really, really resonating with me. And Lakshmi.
We're bringing in all the abundance.
Yeah, and I mean abundance in all areas of life. I think what I've been praying for lately is not bring me my perfect partner or my 6-figure income, but just help me to see the ways that I can be happy right now. That is so abundant. That is a miracle mindset, to just say, help me to see the ways that I can be happy right now. And when you can cultivate that, holy, your whole world's going to change.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit in that for a second. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. Oh, all right. What would you tell younger Krista?
That it's all happening. Because I'm literally living my dream 5 years ago. I remember being, it's kind of embarrassing, but it's so cute. I love myself so much 5 years ago. I was walking through a park and I was pretty intoxicated actually, so the veil was quite thin, and I started getting these downloads, and I can't even remember it now, but this whole poem came through me. And
she's an amazing poet.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
I'm waiting for the book.
Yeah, so this really beautiful poem, thank you so much, came through me, and I remember I started bawling. And I just was like, what am I doing here? I'm not going to be a server forever, am I? I was waiting tables at the time, and the voice very clearly said, no, you're going to be one of the spiritual leaders that you look up to. And I just started bawling because I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel ready. I couldn't even admit that to people because my self-worth was so low at that time that I felt like, who am I to? No, not me. But my soul knew. Like, there was a part of me that was like, fuck yeah! And so I would just tell myself that that it's all gonna work out. It's all fine. I already sense that. I already know what I have in my heart now is gonna be true in 5 years. Because that's the way it works when you do this work.
Totally. Yeah, can't wait to see that.
Yeah, me too, for you.
So, okay, 2 more questions.
Okay.
What would be the last thing? Actually, no. I'm going to end that with that. Where can we find more of you?
Okay. My Instagram handle is at Chalice Grove. So Chalice, and then Grove. Chalice represents the divine feminine. Grove is more of that masculine energy. So it's the balance between the two. ChaliceGrove.com is my website. I also have an Etsy site on there that will link you to beautiful sacred jewelry that I love making, so you can have a physical talisman for the journey that you're going through, which is really potent. I think it's really valuable to not only be offering a service, but also to have a product.
And just saying, I was with her at the gem show, and the stuff that she got is going to be so good. Like all her new stuff. I'm so excited to see it. Okay, so this is the last question. What is the one last thing you would want, whoever is listening right now, what is the one last piece of advice you would like to share? Inspiration, poem, coming through, whatever.
Yeah, I'm just going to sit with that for a moment and just take a breath with it. That you're never, ever alone. There is so much support, and there are so many beings, angels, guides, people that love you unconditionally. And so no matter what it is that you're going through, no matter how dark, no matter how scary, no matter how sad, no matter how frustrating, that you're gonna be okay. Just one day at a time, one breath at a time, and know that you are not alone. We are never alone. It is the biggest illusion that exists on this planet. That's what I would say.
I just had to like go in and like feel that. That was beautiful. Thank you, sister.
Yeah, thank you.
What a strong way to end our like wild adventure these past 11 days.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I feel so honored. You're doing such beautiful work, and just, you know, showcasing other people and their talents and their skills and their ability. That is like such a noble and beautiful cause, and it is a true Aquarian teacher. So
Sat Nam, sister.
Sat
Thank
Nam.
you. Waheguru.
Waheguru.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. This was so great. I just adore you and appreciate you. All right, everyone. Go check out Krista. Like I said, her poetry is phenomenal. Her jewelry is amazing. She's amazing. Just all the amazingness.
And go make a new friend on Instagram, you
And
guys.
go make a new friend on Instagram.
You just never know.
You never know. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we're sending so much love your way. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye.
Blessings.
Blessings.